Joining me now, the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates, CRTV.com, Michelle Malkin. You look at Mark Zuckerberg sweating. That's what you don't want to do when you're sitting in front of Congress. But again, does he really have anything to be worried about? Should we expect him to get the same kind of grilling that Elizabeth Warren would give somebody who runs a Wall Street bank?
That's a really good question, Dagan. After all, Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg have showered hundreds of millions of dollars on Capitol Hill through their lobbying efforts over the last 5-10 years. And you could probably not find a Judiciary Committee member who hasn't accepted money from Facebook. All that said, yes, to answer your question, he does have a lot to worry about. And it's surprising, the turns and twists of fate. I mean, this was the golden boy. This was the Icarus, essentially, of Silicon Valley, now being called to account for, I think, two major issues here. One, the political advertising, the lack of transparency there. And it's rich with irony, of course, because when it was Facebook and Barack Obama, well, that was the toast of the town. And now that it's implicated Republican campaigns, all of a sudden it's a catastrophe. But still, you know, I'll thank the whistleblowers and the undercover reporters in Britain who busted this wide open in the first place. The second, far more grave public policy issue that crosses partisan and ideological lines is the privacy issue. And that is where you're going to have both Republicans and Democrats doing the grilling that we wouldn't normally see.
Michelle, I want to move on to the border because, again, with the Facebook, I just want to point out this was Facebook policy that any app developer could plug into their network and get access to the data of people using the app and then the friends of those individuals. And it was in 2012. This was policy. They ended this process after growing. It helped them grow to about 2 billion users worldwide. They ended it in 2015, but there was massive abuse of it. And the question is, what did people know? Did they know their data was being accessed? And where is all this information stored? It's not just about President Trump and Cambridge Analytica. It's literally about potentially the data of hundreds of millions of people around the globe.
Exactly. And what else? And what other contracts were they planning on getting into? Remember, just this past week, Facebook admitted that they were pursuing hospital data sharing contracts with major medical institutions like Stanford Medical Center. I think consumers would want to know that.
That's why some of the information that I gave them, I have a Facebook account. Well, it's not true. I just made it up on purpose. Yeah. I want to move on to the border. Hundreds of National Guard troops are now deploying to the southern border at this hour after President Trump says he'd like to see up to 4,000 National Guard troops on the ground. Meantime, House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mike McCall says Congress should take note of the militarization of the border.
They want to be active, basically active duty down on the border, fulfilling the roles of border security missions. They want to do surveillance. They want to do watchtowers. They want to be right on the border with Border Patrol. I think this bold action by the president, putting our military, our National Guard down the border, I hope is a wake-up call for Congress to get its job done.
Michelle, President Obama put troops on the border. President Bush put thousands of troops on the border. Will this be effective?
Well, only in concert with all of the other immigration enforcement steps that the Trump administration has taken. And that means seriously constructing the border wall. It also means bringing more Border Patrol agents down to the border. And this is the dirty little secret that ranchers and people who live on our southern border have been trying to tell Capitol Hill for years now. If you station Border Patrol agents 200 miles from the border, why are they called Border Patrol? I mean, they're sitting in cubicles and air-conditioned buildings instead of doing the job that the American citizens hope they would do. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution says it is the proper role of government at both the state and the federal level to stop invasion. I've been talking about this for 25 years. Hopefully somebody's going to listen now. It is not unprecedented, as you mentioned, Dagan, for past administrations to have sent National Guard there. I think what is unprecedented is that you now have liberal states like Oregon refusing to heed Trump's call and holding back their National Guard. I don't know how he's going to get to 2,000. He's got 250 from Texas and 150 from Arizona. We still got a long way to go.
Well, and speaking of those communities that seem most focused on harboring illegal immigrants, were you dismayed by the fact in that omnibus spending bill that there were no restrictions on funding for sanctuary cities? There were no.
I absolutely.
You know, that's the power. That's the power of Congress. That's the most effective thing that Congress can do to starve these cities of money that will not enforce federal law, and they didn't do it.
Yes. It is one of the many, many reasons I spoke out against that omnibus bill, which defied so many of the core principles, not just of limited government conservatives, the budget part, but yes, on the thing that the Republicans have paid lip service to, defunding sanctuary cities and using the power of the purse to help to protect the American people. The Republican leadership failed on that, and I think that President Trump has regretted signing it.
You know, one of the things that I think is really interesting about that, though, Michelle, is even though this was a big fail, I do see that a lot of people now in those states where there's sanctuary cities, specifically California, where there's 9 seats that are going to be up there, there's a good chance that could go Republican now, where we were thinking for sure in California they'd go Democrat just because people are more aware of this issue.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't attribute that to the omnibus necessarily. I think it, in part, is the backlash to these sanctuary outlaw safe spaces for 25 years. And I started my career in newspapers in L.A. when the grassroots revolt against illegal immigration started. It's a long time in coming. And I think that in part it's because these left-wing Democrats cannot help themselves. They demonize ICE. They liken them to terrorists. And then look at what's happened to the sanctuary cities that they are responsible for, like San Francisco, which is covered in blood, literally, because of those sanctuary policies.
Before you go, I want to get your reaction to this controversy about what musician David Crosby put out on Twitter, this now deleted tweet. Crosby wrote, "Oh boy, burn, baby, burn," after the fatal Trump Tower fire in Midtown Manhattan killed a 67-year-old man. Michelle, your reaction to that?
There was a lot of vile gloating from blue check verified folks on Twitter. He was one of them. He immediately tried to hide it, but this is why I started my Twitchy curation site in the first place. They were one of the first to catch him in the act, and he wasn't the only one, and I think that's what's incredibly disturbing. It points to a double standard on social media, too. Yes, he deleted his, but there are many other verified celebrity users who've gotten away with the worst kind of language, and I think it's the concern over the censorship of conservatives who are engaged in polite and civil discourse compared to the filth that they allow, that I think is part of the questions that are going to be raised on Capitol Hill, not just of Facebook and Twitter, but a lot of other social media outlets as well.
Right. Knowing when to shut up is a gift most people need for Christmas.
It is. That's right. The gift of self-restraint.
Right, exactly. Michelle, great to see you. Thank you so much,
You
Michelle
too.
Malkin.